There we go. Let's call this meeting of Kittitas County Public Hospital District Number 1 Board of Commissioners to order. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it. First item on the agenda tonight is the approval of the agenda. Anything to add or change about the agenda?
I move for adoption.
What's that?
Medical staff.
Yeah, so right. Kevin Martin isn't able to be here, so the medical staff development plan, we'll wait on that until a future meeting. Tim O'Brien, I hear, is in surgery, but Julie Peterson will present the Medical Executive Committee recommendations, and we'll vote on them. So there are those two changes. Any additional changes? Okay, Roy makes motion to accept the agenda. Second from there. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Bob Davis can't be with us tonight, but he's given us his blessing. All right. Consent agenda. We all had a chance to review the minutes, approval checks, the foundation report, finance committee minutes, the quality council minutes. Any questions or anything about anything to talk about there before we sort of move and approve it? Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Yeah, second?
I'll second.
Okay, Eric. Okay, any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Yes, thank you. Before we continue on with the presentations, we do have one quick announcement to make. And Liana doesn't know this, but this is about Liana. Right? She's reached a milestone here, and she may know it, or maybe not, but as I hear it, 20 years of service. I think those of us, especially Eric and I, when we came on the board, we had a lot of learning to do, and Liana was a great mentor and a great friend to us, and we really appreciate it. And I know that Roy and Liana go way back too, so it's really feels like a very close relationship, and I personally really appreciate all the work she's done on the board, but also everything that she's done to help me as a board member and as a faculty member, but we might talk about that here. But we really appreciate the work you did as president and just as board member for a long time. You've been a great source of continuity on the board, but you know, you're always willing to sort of think about things from a new perspective, and you're open to different ideas, and you've been very encouraging to us, so we all appreciate it on the board, and I know that everybody at KVH really appreciates how hard you work for them and everything you've done over the past 20 years. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. I can honestly say that these 20 years have gone by rapidly. There's been a lot of up and down, vicissitudes and changes, most of it for the good, but I'm so proud of this organization. I feel very lucky that the people of the county have elected me to serve in this capacity. And I also feel very, very fortunate to work with my fellow board members. This is the best board I've ever had, and I am so fortunate. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Congratulations again. All right, so presentations today. There's a Rehab Visions update. Bill, go ahead.
All right. So my name is Bill Manowitz. I'm with Rehab Visions. I'm charged with all of our contracts in the state of Washington. Julie Peterson asked me to come and just kind of say what's going on in therapy, how we're doing. I can't believe we've already been here 7 months now. It's been a fast and furious 7 months. Right before the meeting, Julie said they only gave me an allotment of about 2 hours, so I'll try and pare this down to make sure we can get it all in. Okay, so basically, a couple of the things that we're asked to report on. One is the patient satisfaction scores. We're not yet on the HealthStreams Press Ganey surveys, but I know that that's coming. But in the meantime, we're still gathering satisfaction scores, old style, by this form. It's our patient satisfaction survey, and that's kind of small, so you really can't see it. But the percentages overall, we have about a 98% in the fourth quarter with 28. That I don't know what I did. That's wrong. There were 22 in the fourth quarter. There were 28 in the first quarter with a 95% rating and 99% in the so far in the second quarter, but we've only got 8 people back because we're right fresh into it. So far our weak point is number 8 at a cumulative score of 94%, which is still pretty good. But that's the one that says my overall expectations, personal goals of therapy were met. And there's lots of comments that go along with that as well. And so one of the comments that generally gets tagged along that 8 is, well, yeah, I have pain and I will always have pain and I understand this. So there's some, that question tends to strike a chord with a lot of people. But overall, I think that our satisfaction scores are fantastic. I can tell you when we were 95%, there is one form in there that we had a disgruntled patient, but we'll work through those. So good results overall. Our evaluation response times or access. Our inpatient, we said that we would get to those inpatients within 24 hours. In talking to our therapists, we're absolutely doing that. We're able to get to the people in under 24 hours. On the outpatient side of things, we're definitely contacting all the patients within, actually we're doing it within 48 hours to schedule the initial evaluations. Currently, we're about 3 weeks out on an evaluation, but we still prioritize any orthopedic surgery, and we get those in like next day. Typically, at most, it's 3 days, and we're getting those orthopedic surgery patients in. So that's great news. I mean, I think we're really getting the patients seen and taking good care of them. Our cancellation rate, the goal was to be below 15%. Right now, we're at 11%. One thing on cancellation rates, what we're really looking at is the missed opportunities to see patients. And so we're really striving hard to make sure that our secretaries, all of our administrative assistants are when they have a cancellation. Now, no-shows you can't do this with, but cancellations, we're definitely calling people and sliding them in. They're really good about grabbing those evaluations and sliding them in earlier, that kind of stuff. So we fill those cancellations before they ever get a chance to actually be an open slot. And they're doing a fantastic job there. We're excited about that. Our productivity standard, now we've had a lot of things happen in the past 7 months. When we first came on board, our overall, all disciplines added together, was 50%. In February, when Cerner kicked on, I don't know what happened with the rest of the hospital, but I know in therapy services, we really struggled. And you'll see that on units and visits as well on our next slide. But in March, we're creeping back up, 54%, April 58%, so far in May we're at 61%. Our real driver with PT is up to 70% already, and they're still going strong. You'll notice that OT services are lacking, and we are really focused on growing an OT practice. We've brought 2 people in, which we'll talk about in a minute, and we'll talk a little bit about what they're doing as well. On our units per visit, you'll see February, where our units and visits, we really dropped in February. When we came in, we really looked at the full month of November. December was a little hard. December's always a little tough just because of the holidays and everything. But January, we were kicking back up. February, it crashed because we're all trying to learn the new system. But you can see that we're climbing and growing past that. So that's kind of where we're at. Any questions on this, units per visit, productivity, before we move on?
What was the target on productivity? Because it's not 100%.
No, 70% is really the goal. So with PT, we're there. OT, we have some work to do with speech. Of course, now speech, to be quite honest, any speech paths in the room, that's 70% is like, they're killing it at that point in time. And so the fact that if we look at her, she's at 61, and that's just Ruth Ann right now. And so we'll talk a little bit about what we're doing in speech. We're actually adding somebody, and they're at 61. Ruth Ann's killing it. I mean, she's doing a fantastic job, really, and she's really taking, as far as her workload, and she's really taking on a lot. We're real proud of her. She's doing some good stuff.
What explains the OT numbers? Is it lack of demand? Is it?
No. If you'll recall, when we came on board, you had one OT. She was trying to do home health, the lymphedema program. She was swamped. Absolutely wasn't getting patients in. Was pulled 50 different directions. When we came on, we said, okay, we've just got to build the program. We've got to get 2 in here. And so we actually hired a CODA, and we had to do it with it. We had to cover it with a traveler until we could get our OT hired. We finally have an OT and a CODA, but they're basically building the program from scratch. Because when Shelley went over and started working in home health, of course, that took the OT home health caseload away from them. And so we're really building from the basics of OT. Now, just general staffing, my general rule of thumb is you look at how many PTs you need in a community to run your services, and you need about half that many OT to run a good, solid program. So the fact that we have, I haven't counted recently, but we have quite a few PT. We should be able to get the program in OT, to have 3 to 4 FTEs in OT, and keep them busy. So this OT here is absolutely a growing program, which, again, when we talk about programming, we'll dive into that a little bit more. This, I think y'all already know this information. Some of the new staff that has already joined us, PTA was Cheryl Pinnico, the OT and the CODA. Our OT is Kat Newton, and our CODA is Chris Matson. Both wonderful. They're fantastic, great clinicians, and we'll talk about that. As far as other staffing needs, we do still have a traveler in PT. Her name is Jill. She's fantastic, and she's actually talking with us about wanting to stay on board. We have hired Brent Denniser-Green, who is a PT, and he should be joining us in August, and that is to fill the traveler position. So at that point in time, we really don't have any travel positions to where we have to have somebody there. From there, it's looking at growth. So in August, we'll be fully staffed on PT, except for the fact that I'm about to open a position because we're growing. And I would really like to get that 3-week evaluation time even lower than that, because in my mind, that's still too long. So we're adding another PT. We're going to open a position, and we've already got 2 people, the traveler being one of them, kind of talking to us and interested in no, I shouldn't probably say that yet, because it's just too premature. Siri Betts is the speech path that we've hired on. She should be starting in early June, pending licensure. So everyone cross your fingers for us, because we're waiting on the state of we're waiting on the state of Washington there. Again, she's going to start with us on June 4th. Ruth Ann is really wanting to cut back some of her hours, and so this will give us about 1.5 FTEs in speech, which will be just about right for what we are right now. And so from that, we'll just be looking at growth. OT is fully staffed at this time, obviously, and again, the open position. So that's kind of where we're at on the staffing and growth there. Programming. So let's talk just a little bit about what OT is doing, where they're focusing. They're absolutely focusing on building their pediatric program. The pediatrics were already there, but when Shelley left, a lot of the peds, it's the nature of pediatric care. The pediatrics, because they're such long-term patients, they really grow, they get connected to their therapist. And so when Shelley left, a lot of the pediatrics kind of fell off. We're trying to find them. We're doing a lot of marketing events with OT to get those pediatrics back. And I know they're going to reach out to the school diagnosticians to see if we can't get some of those kids interested in coming back. Kat's already been talking to Children's Hospital. Is there a Children's Hospital in Yakima? Am I lying if I say Children's?
Children's Village.
Yes, Children's Village. It's not a hospital, it's just okay. So she's already talking to Children's Village. Apparently Children's Village is busy enough with kids in Yakima that they're only servicing the kids in their locale, and so they're trying to send patients back to CAT, which we really like. And so we hope that continues, and the pediatrics will continue to grow. Lymphedema, Shelley was lymphedema trained, and so when we took over, of course, the traveler that we had didn't have lymphedema, so those patients stopped for a little while. And so we're building that caseload back up right now. Right now, we did send Kat off to get certified in lymphedema care, so she is doing lymphedema now. We have about 12 patients on caseload, which is a heavy lymphedema caseload. I mean, that's quite a bit. Yes?
I'm not sure what lymphedema is.
Sure. Lymphedema is really a disorder of the lymph system within your body to where you retain lymph fluid. And so it's swelling, and it's generally not robust swelling through the whole body. You're going to see one arm that's really big, or both legs are really big, and it's all about helping the flow of the lymph fluid through the body. So a lot of times, if you think about You know, when your doctor, you go into the doctor and you say you're feeling sick and they feel your lymph nodes or your mom did, and they go, oh yeah, your lymph nodes are really, well, what's happening there is some bacteria, some infection gets in there and it slows down the lymph nodes and they back up because they're trying to clean a lot of that stuff out. Well, people with lymphedema problems have nodes that are just either absent because of cancer or just not working. And so the idea is to get that flow moving again and help with the swelling. It's a real debilitating condition, but the manual lymph drainage that occurs in lymphedema therapy is phenomenal, and she is going gangbusters with it. So that's good. That's starting to grow. Chris has a real specialty with splinting and hand therapy, so we're really trying to work with different orthopedic surgeons that focus on basically elbow to fingertip, and trying to get those patients to come in here. You do have a certified hand therapist in town that gets a lot of the referrals, but he has more work than he can shake his stick at, and so we're actually talking with him to just, part of it is, hey, we're comfortable taking your leftovers, just send them to us, because we know that those people will then keep coming to us. So, we're looking at those referral bases all over the place. So some other things that OTs are doing, they're also doing rounding with physicians to try and educate the physicians on what OT is and what OT can provide for them. Our occupational therapists are fantastic at looking at what the functional needs of the patients are. We are covering the inpatient side of things as well, and really looking forward to increasing the number of home safety evals. Home safety evals are what happens with your inpatients that are trying to go home, and they're going home to an area that they might not have the best mobility for. And so our OT is willing and able to go out and do an evaluation of their home before they get there, make recommendations for change and all that stuff, and really helps make the continuum of care come through. So from inpatient to outpatient. So we're excited about that. And actually, a lot of those actually turn over to home health evals before they actually come to outpatient. So it's really kind of a combination between, the big idea is to keep them within the system. On the PT side of things, Anne is really advancing her vestibular program. We've had the vestibular program accessible, but she's actually gone back and become certified in vestibular care, so we're really trying to blow that program up. Excited about that. Tammy, who's doing a lot of the inpatient care, has a real interest in pelvic health, which is women's health or incontinence training, and she is doing a fantastic, she just got trained in pelvic health, and so she's coming on board there, and she's already, Marcus, thank you. I was just
right from the treatment room.
Tammy is actually now seeing outpatients as well as her inpatient caseload, because even she's only been trained for like a month, and she already has 2 half days of pelvic health patients.
Can you clarify for me what is the difference between an inpatient and an outpatient? I didn't even realize that a lot of the work you did was with inpatients. I'm assuming those are in the hospital.
Yes, yeah. So you're acute care patients, and this is actually one of the things that we want to talk about just a little bit. But right now you have your inpatients that are just acute care. They're typically here for about 3 days. I mean, that's pretty much the max. Is that what y'all? I don't. You are my inpatient people here, but they still have therapy needs, and so we absolutely come in and work with them here in the hospital before we either refer them to home health or outpatient services upon discharge. But the real place that therapy really comes alive on the inpatient side is swing bed. And so and I know that's kind of a goal here, is to kind of get a swing bed program going. As soon as that, and part of what we've done is we've built our PT program. We've actually got some people in place, Cheryl Pinnacle being one of them, that really have a knack for longer term acute care or swing bed or skilled nursing facility type coverage. And so we're kind of already set up for that swing bed to turn on to where we can get some longer term acute care, or not longer term acute, but inpatient care. So does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
Okay, fair enough. And then Holly has really been expanding her services on the neurological conditions, so whether they're stroke, traumatic brain injury, spinal cord injuries, closed head injuries, concussions, all those things. Holly's really trying to expand her services there, so we're excited about that, about some of the program growth that's going on there. So up and coming things, I already talked about the pediatric growth. We're trying to make a school connection there. On the PT side, we're excited to really get going on some occupational medicine stuff, and just trying to help that group of physicians get their patients back and ready for work. And that's kind of where our growth position is being focused on right now. It's one of the people that we're talking about coming on board for growth for occupational medicine. So that's pretty much our programming in a nutshell, some of the things we've been able to do since we've been here. I will tell you that for growing a therapy, for expanding services, this is huge. And so typically in any given facility, you generally wouldn't want to start more than maybe 2 programs in a year, just because it takes so much effort to get those off and running. And so Marcus has really bitten off a large chunk in trying to manage and grow these programs. He's doing a fantastic job, and things are really moving. So I'm really proud of this. I mean, this is a big deal. So marketing, I don't know Michelle Whirl. Is she? Kudos to you. Let's give you a little love. I didn't realize you were a Jayhawk and all that stuff. But I'm not a Jayhawk. I really don't care. No, I'm just kidding. But our marketing director at Rehab Visions is, and they have connected, and they are really working well together. So we really appreciate your community relations director and everything that she's able to do with us. One of the big things that we're doing as far as marketing is a print shop, and this is something that, as far as marketing material, here's a couple examples. This is our lymphedema card, this is our pelvic health card, and we have your logo on it, so that this is something that our clinicians can jump onto our intranet, look through the print shop and go, man, I really like this, we need to print a couple of these. They just order them, they come to them, and they can then distribute them to the physicians or the community based on our marketing needs. So we have several of these cards built up. One of my favorites is actually just a blank card. It says FYI across the top, it says KVH on the bottom, and it's just a blank form that our clinicians can then take and write notes to physicians on, just saying, hey, just to let you know, Marcus just took this class on this, and he's ready to see your patients with these conditions. Just a quick little handwritten note. A lot of fun, great marketing ideas, but that's the print shop. Of course, I say with permissions because we understand that we want the KVH logo on there. We know that there's some. We always want to check with Michelle and make sure that we're good to use those things. Also working together, we had an internal announcement about Marcus being named rehab director. Yay, Marcus! An introduction announcement flyer about the OT program. Again, we're really trying to pump some OT into this community and help them understand what OT does. Creating newspaper ads. I don't know if you knew, but April was Occupational Therapy Month, so we're trying to capitalize on that and really say, hey. And actually, you're going to see the same thing on PT Month. You're going to see the same thing on Better Speech and Hearing Month. I'm saying that wrong. Something like that. But Speech Therapy Month. And so we try and always do something to kind of raise awareness. And in April, we were definitely doing that with OT. And so we have ads running in both local newspapers about what is OT. OT is out doing real-time consultations with providers, which we already talked about. And we're definitely beginning the conversation of getting on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and make sure that people know what we're doing and just kind of promoting on the social networks. So thanks again to Michelle for working with us on that. You can tell me in front of all these people, is Stacy okay to work with, or do I need to just kick her?
Other than that, she's in Omaha, she's fine.
I know. Yeah, she's good.
Great.
We love Stacy, and she's fantastic. So, and this is my last slide, so if you have questions. Cerner billing, we did recently determine that there are some codes in Cerner that are not dropping bills. And so, and you know all about that. But just to know that we are working closely with the billing office to remedy the situation, because we absolutely want to get paid for what we're doing. And so, and you want that too, and so we're all on the same page there. So really, I'm super excited about some things that are happening in therapy. Your program is growing, they're responding. They've been absolutely wonderful to work with. I be frank, I thought I was going to get a little bit more resistance to some of the changes that we implement, and they have been absolutely wonderful, very inviting, and they actually pretend like they like me when I come, so that's good news. So. Any questions?
What was the productivity for PT? You probably know this before. You don't want to hazard a guess. All right.
I would guess it was about the 50 percentile.
Yeah, I mean, it's just from what I remember, it seems like you've made some really great strides. So,
So I mean, we are excited. Again, the staff have been wonderful, very responsive, and I think that I hope they're appreciative of the growth that they're seeing in their department. Again, this growth position is that we're opening in PT is actually another clinician in town who's saying, gee, I want to get on that bandwagon. And when you get people from other clinics in town that are reaching out to you and saying, hey, can I join your team? That speaks higher than anything I can put up here. Because when therapists in your community want to be a part of your team, that's good news. That's good news. So,
any questions?
I have a comment. I've met you just a handful of times, Bill. Each time I've been impressed by your optimism and your enthusiasm, and I can imagine that that's fairly contagious in the workplace. So I really appreciate your approach.
well, thank you. I appreciate that. So, I recently attended a webinar that talks a lot about positivity in the workplace and how it really changes, and it was really geared towards patients in pain, and how just having a positive atmosphere helps people with their pain. I mean, you can be absolute, and we're not horrible therapists, but you could have absolutely horrible therapists, and if it's a positive team building environment, the patients get better. And so when you add the positive atmosphere with good patient care, I mean, the patients are just getting better. So it's good stuff. Thank you very much. And I owe it to the therapists because, they make it easy for me to be happy. So.
Other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
Before we go to our next presentation, let's just take a moment in case there are any public comments.
You can suggest me.
This is the time for public comment. If there's anybody who would like to make a comment, please give your name and address and try to keep it to 3 minutes. Is there anybody who would like to speak in the public comment session at this point?
I can introduce myself. I'm Mandy Wilson with the State Auditor's Office, and just here to listen to the results of the CPA audit.
Great. Well, thank you, man. Anyone else?
Okay. Would you like for us to stick around?
No.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, then let's move on to our second presentation, Tom Dingus, about the audit.
All right. I'm Tom Dingus from Dingus Airport Associates, and there's been applause in the first two presentations, but I won't be hurt if there's no applause in this one. Been a lot of enthusiasm. Hopefully the accountant doesn't damper it all. But so the auditors, so here's our presentation this year, a little bit about who we are, a CPA firm. At 3 partners, we're located in Spokane Valley. We work with over 75 critical access hospitals, audit, cost report, and all kind of related services. Who we are. The agenda, because we'll go through, everybody should have 3 different reports with the audited financial statements, the financial indicators, depending on how you got those electronically or bound, a little different. But the audited financial statements, the bound financial indicators, and then a letter. And I'll kind of go through those and just hit the high points. You could follow along in those reports, or you could just follow along with PowerPoint, kind of pick which way you want to do it, and I'll reference back and forth as you want. So starting with the independent auditor's report is on pages 1 and 2 of the audited financial statement document. If you want to follow along that way, you don't have to necessarily. It's an unmodified opinion, which means that the financial statements that follow present fairly the results of operations and the financial positions of the district. So what you want And there are 2 audit reports in here, and this is the first of them. Pages 3 through 7 of the financial statements are management's discussion and analysis. It's a condensed financial statement and a narrative that goes along with essentially the condensed, shorter version of the rest of the financial statement. It's a good reference point to go back to later if you really want to look at the financial statements. It's for management, and Libby puts together a ton of, and I like the story behind the numbers. It gives a little more explanation of what happened during the year, why things changed, and so it's a good reference document. Starting on page 8 of the financial statements is the asset part of the balance sheet or statement of financial position. And when we get to the second document, I'll kind of go back to the cash position and the patient accounts receivable. But a couple numbers on here that just, that changed, and I'm sure you're aware of this, but first of all, the estimated third-party payer settlements, there is a $500,000 receivable recorded from Medicare from the 2017 Medicare cost report. As a critical access hospital, you're paid on a cost basis for your inpatient services, your outpatient services, and your rural health clinic services from Medicare. And so every year there's a settlement of you either get a little more money or you owe some money back because that's trued up to the actual cost. So this year it's $500,000. The other thing is you go down to the non-current assets at the bottom, you'll see that there's the cash and cash equivalents restricted for cash capital acquisitions of a little over $10.8 million. That's the remaining proceeds of the $13.5 million revenue bonds that you issued in 2017 and haven't been used for capital acquisitions as of the date of the balance sheet, December 31st, 2017. And then you'll also see down in the capital assets, actually I usually don't cover capital assets, but a big increase of $11 million or so as you bought the medical office building and also the Cerner implementation and all the other regular capital acquisitions. So a significant bump up in capital acquisitions. Liabilities and net assets. The flip side is an estimated third-party payer settlement liability on this page. The bulk of this is rural health clinic, Medicaid managed care reconciliations from prior years that still haven't been paid yet because they're not due to be paid yet, not that you haven't paid them, but estimates of what you're ultimately going to pay. And the difference between for Medicaid managed cares and your rural health clinics, you get paid a fee scheduled by the Medicaid managed care payer plus an enhancement rate based on the number of patients enrolled at your clinic. That later gets compared to the number of actual encounters provided to those patients times the traditional Medicaid rate, and then you either get some money back or you owe some money back. And so for some of the prior years, there were some fairly good sized amounts owed back. I was actually, in 2017, it's only like an $80,000 settlement, so it's actually not much of an issue in the more current years, but there still is almost a $1.6 million obligation sitting there. With some states trying to get everything cleaned up through the end of in 2018 for 2017 and beyond. And the system changed in 2018 how you're paid, so this becomes not an issue going forward of these commercial settlements. It'll take real time going forward. There's a little bit of Medicaid settlement in there as well that offsets that 1 million percent. And then on the non-current liabilities, obviously that jumped way up as you issued the revenue bond in 2017. $5 million. Did very little debt before, and still when we get to the financial indicators, still not a debt equity ratio that's very big and very hard. Please ask questions and you want to comment on it. Let's go to the key points of what I hit there. The next page, page 10, is the income statement or statement of changes in net position, financial position. The top part is the operating results, where you compare is the operating revenue, what you the district got paid to provide patient care, with the operating expenses, what it costs to provide that patient care. To get to that operating income of $890,000 in 2017 compared to about a little over breaking even the previous year. The really revenue was almost exactly flat. Some services were up, some services were down. The payment estimates for the different settlements, and it all came out about exactly the same. And total expenses were actually down about 1% from the previous year. So essentially revenue was about the same, but expenses were down a little bit, so that's where there's a little more operating income this year. And the only thing, the only other point out, you might kind of stick out is the professional fees. I don't know what that is. I never can use the pointer very well. But the professional fees went down from the previous year. There were $2,968,000 as your hospitalists and your ER providers became employed instead of contracted. So moving into the salaries line. So positive operating income. And when we get to the second report, you'll see how that in relation to the size of the organization. Non-operating results, bottom part of that page. And just a couple, the taxation for debt service is the levy that was approved by the voters, I think it was 2008, to pay for that unlimited tax general obligation bond debt service. That actually, 2018 is the last year of that bond outstanding, so it's also the last year you'll see this revenue. The debt service comes away, so does the revenue. And as we talked about, I also presented on the Finance Committee meeting on Tuesday morning, as Julie pointed out, that revenue goes away next year. It doesn't really affect your cash flow in a negative way, but it's going to make the net income also $1.4 million next year, just because that tax revenue goes away. As a public hospital district, you just get really a very little bit of actual maintenance operation revenue. Most public hospital districts get more than that, so you're operating not really with the tax revenue other than the maintenance operation revenue. So got to generate the margin from operations.
I have a question on it.
Yes.
Even though it's a nominal amount, what helps for the change between 26 and 27?
Off the top, from the maintenance operations, I can't say for sure, but some of the taxes that do come through are like, there's like leasehold taxes and things. There's like kind of miscellaneous tax receipts. There's some of the transactions.
And construction, I mean, there's an additional amount for construction. The actual M&O levy itself is less than 16,000.
Yeah. But there's some miscellaneous taxes that can kind of come through the
system.
system.
That come through. Timber taxes, I don't think timber taxes come through.
Sometimes, There's just there's a few that are a little more variable. Since it's all you got, it shows up.
Right, we don't remember those things.
The interest expense was up, obviously the issuance of new bonds, but there was also a couple $100,000 of bond issuance costs that are expense the bonds were issued as well. And then you get down to your change in net position of a positive $2.6 million, $2,648,000 net margin net income. So when we get to the financial indicators, so that kind of relation to the size of the operation. So up about $1.1 million from the previous year, so obviously a positive trend there. Then, skipping through the statement of cash flows, it's information about how the cash coming and goes in the organization, but skipping through that for the presentation. Starting on page 13 and then going through page 32 are the notes to the financial statement, and I'm definitely not going to go in and misspell those, so don't worry. Just know that the notes serve three primary purposes: explain who you are as a reporting entity, public hospital district, the services you provide, and then go into the accounting summary of accounting policies, which explains how different balances and transactions are reported and recognized in the financial statements. It's good reading to understanding financial statements, and then just with details on significant account balances and the rest of the notes. Kind of the significant notes in the financial statements. I usually don't talk about this one, but it's kind of, there are some significant accounting pronouncements coming out over the next couple of years. So there's a page that lists 4 or 5. There are 2 that are particularly important to you guys. And we talked about this a lot at the Finance Committee meeting. So, but because there is a new accounting standard that requires a liability to be recorded for other post-employment retirement benefits, and when you join the Public Employee Benefit Board to provide your health insurance, that by doing that, you've also provided retirement health insurance access for your retirees. And the retiree access, what they would pay is subsidized by kind of a pay-as-you-go basis in the system. So accounting standards require that liability be recorded in the period that the employees are using it, and then they get subsidized health care later when they retire. It is a very, not the right word, it's going to go with funky today, a funky accounting standard, because there's a liability that will be recorded, but you can leave at any time, and then the liability goes away. So I was hoping to have like a ballpark number, but this potential liability is probably $4, $5, $6 million. hit the balance sheet, potentially 2018. So Julie and Libby are aware of this, and just giving Julie a headache again, I can see right now.
It's giving me a headache and heartburn.
Yeah.
Headache and heartburn.
But and it's interesting, and since we talked with the finance committee after I left on Tuesday morning, I was thinking about this as I was driving, and Libby asked specifically this afternoon, if you actually left the plan in 2019, I don't think you would have to worry about the because you would know you're out by that point in time. So just different things to think about.
How many
And
hospital districts are being impacted by this?
I think it's 12 or 14 this year with 3 or 4 more that joined, and might say I'm an auditor, so I'm a year behind. But in 17, 12 or 14, I don't remember which number, 2 or 3 more that joined in 2018, and at least one I think was thinking about 2019. And PEB provides the health insurance benefits. I think a lot of you work with Central Washington University. That's your health benefits come through that board. And so it's most of the state agencies are there, not all the state agencies. But they've actually reached out, I think, more to political subdivisions recently, which is why some of the public hospital districts are there. So it's an interesting accounting thing that can have some significant impact on the balance sheet. And I will have some good numbers for Libby, better numbers, not exact
They're
numbers.
never going to be good.
Yeah.
These are the bad.
Yeah, accurate bad
More
numbers.
accurate, yes, there you go.
Once we have some other hospitals we're working with, they're getting their initial evaluations from the actuaries within the next couple of days. I was hoping to actually have one today that I could do some really rough math, like look at it half your size, so they're like, we need half your size that, but I don't have that number. So within the next few days, we'll have some numbers that really see what this is. So that issue is out there. The second is in 2020, the lease standard changes, where all your leases, and the short, you could go to a whole day on this and not learn everything about leases, but the really short version is all the operating leases now become capital leases, which means that they will be, the asset will be recognized on the balance sheet and the related obligation will be recognized as a liability. It won't change your net income in any way significantly. The lease expense goes away, but now you'll have depreciation expense and interest expense in its place that will roughly approximate the lease expense. It won't be exact from year to year, but over the course of the lease, it will be exactly the same. But your balance sheet will have more assets, but most important, the part that is most significant is the balance sheet will have more liabilities. And you have a fair amount of equipment leases, so this will affect you guys' balance sheet over the next couple of years and change up how it works. And a lot of accounting standards, we as the accountants and auditors can help them implement them kind of as part of the financial statement preparation. This one takes a lot of work on the organization side to gather up this data. And there's a lot of work that has to go into the assumptions behind the leases, particularly when you start leasing real estate, where you have renewal terms and variable rates, and you have to go with the best information you have at the time, and might have to re-estimate down the road as the situation shifts. So a lot of work coming up. And this, both the for-profit world, the nonprofit world, and the government world are all implementing the standard in 2020. The whole world is usually your accounting standards aren't that much fun. Long-term debt, just to point out, that's on pages 24 and 25. We've already talked about that with the unlimited tax general obligation bonds paid from the specific voter-approved levy, and then your new revenue bonds paid for from operations. Note 7, right after that, is the operating leases. This is actually where you start to see those numbers there. Those leases, you won't have that disclosure in 2020. Those are the leases that are recorded in that regard start to go into the balance sheet. It's not as direct, just trying to take those numbers and put on there. But that's those obligations. Net patient service revenue is on page 28. I can't read my writing. At page 28, I always like to point this one out a little bit because it helps to see where your revenue comes from, who pays you, what type of patients you have, where the money comes from. About 41% of your patients are Medicare and about 12% are Medicaid. Both of those numbers include the managed care elements of those two payer groups. So about 53% comes from those two payer groups. Most smaller hospitals, critical access hospitals, rural hospitals are more like 60, 70, 80%, 60 to 75% in that range. So because of your demographics of the community, you have more commercial members, which is good. And then subsequent
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No.
That's mostly because university.
Right. Yeah. You have a large I was thinking, when people think about how much healthcare is covered, even with 53% being Medicare and Medicaid, I was thinking, in most communities, particularly smaller communities, the largest employers are also government entities. So much healthcare. You yourself as the public hospital district, the county, the city, the university, they're all government employers. And so they're government-driven system, one way or another. Page 32, note 14. Subsequent event, just that you did issue a $6 million more revenue bond in 2018, so I just point that out. It wasn't recorded in 2017, obviously, but it's significant. It happened after the year. And then pointed that out, and then on pages 33 and 34 are the second auditor's report. Is the second auditor's report. This is where it's done in accordance with government auditing standards. We report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance. And the takeaway of this, no material weaknesses reported, no significant deficiencies reported, so no findings. That's the takeaway there. And we do report findings, so it's not a given that there are no findings. I don't know exactly, yeah. It could be, there's never any findings in audit. It's probably roughly half to 2/3 of the audits we do have some sort of material weakness or significant deficiency, so it's noteworthy when there's not reported. Then the second report, which I will go through, is the financial indicators really just a byproduct of the audit, not required by any kind of accounting standards or auditing standards. But it helps put these numbers in perspective to the size of your organization. The first one, your net income. What is that in relation to your organization? It's 3.6% of your revenue, so your total margin is 3.6, up from the 2.1 in the previous year. And generally, you want to be in the 3 to 6% range over time. Some years will be a little up, some years will be a little down, but 3 to 6% would be a sustainable organization. The next page is the operating margin. That is how much of that margin comes from your operations. It excludes those non-operating revenue and expenses. And so 1.2% in this year compared to about break-even the year before. And since you have so little tax revenue, and you'll have even less tax revenue after the TTO bonds go away, your operating margin is going to be generating most of the total margin. So it's going to be almost 3 to 6% as well. Days cash on hand, the reserves. This actually has a lot of elements in it. It's up, but 58 of those days, 58 of those 178 days is that 10 million plus that's the proceeds from that's sitting there. And then the other decrease is that you did buy a lot of capital assets with your cash reserve, so it's kind of a little bit of both. And you have 90 days, not a general goal to have about 90 days operating cash on hand is at least the minimum that you want to do within 90 days of capital. Is the next goal after that.
And when I talk to other commissioners at other hospitals, they're always jealous.
Yeah, not everybody has cash on hand. It's really bad when you have to do the graph because you have to show it goes down. It's not good. Current ratio. This looks more alarming than it really is. This excludes, in the previous year you had, it excludes the $11,000 of bond proceeds and also the $19 million of funded depreciation that you have set aside. You could say it's not funded depreciation, it's available for operations, and then it would be a current asset, and the current ratio would be significantly higher. So keep that in mind that it's not really as bad as that particular ratio works. This ratio attempts to show, are you replacing your equipment at the same rate you're theoretically using it up? So it compares equipment purchases to equipment depreciation. On the far right, they add this year's a 5-year aggregate number because you want to be around 100% over time. It doesn't take into account the fact that you do lease a fair amount of equipment, so it would be a little different if you factor the fact that your leases automatically kind of review the equipment, and that's one of the reasons to lease is that it kind of keeps you in a positive. So in all ratios, you got to kind of know the whole story behind it. Long-term debt to net position. This is where you can like be like a USA Today and say the debt position tripled. But it went from 7% to 21%. It's still not a big number. I think that, but 7% was really low. 21% is still not a very high debt to equity ratio. And you can see, and I should have mentioned this earlier, but some of the ratios on the right are the comparisons, and those are the medians. And so you can still see that you're below the median for all the comparison groups of Washington hospitals, the Access hospitals in the West, hospitals in your revenue location. So. Days in net patient accounts receivable. How long does it take to collect an average account? All accounts for all services you provide. It's 46 compared to around the 41. You're kind of right in the range. So you'll see some people get into the high 30s, but 40s are good solid place to be. Sure. The Cerner implementation has probably made that more challenging this year, so that's a good reason to do Cerner in place early in the year. So worked out by the time. Gross days in patient accounts receivable shows this a different way, which is without the contractual adjustments and the write-offs and allowances, but the same trends. Contractual adjustment percentage. How much of your standard charge is not paid by Medicare, Medicaid, and other third-party payers? You're going to be in that low 40% range, kind of easing up, going up a little bit. Kind of seeing that across the board at other hospitals as well. Bad debt percentage as a percent of revenue, net patient service revenue. We do it this way just so you can see the comparison to the medians of the other hospital groups, so kind of right in there with everybody else at the median midpoint. And then bad debt and charity care percentage of revenue. This is the percentage of the gross revenue. And the takeaway of this is that your bad debt percentage and your charity care, the charity care being patients that don't have the ability to pay, and bad debt being patients theoretically that have the ability to pay but don't. And adding those two together, you're under 3% really for these past few years, which is a very low percentage. Another kind of difference driven by the demographics of each community. And we really see these numbers all over the board, from low ones like use. You can go to states that haven't expanded Medicaid. Like you can go to Texas and they have 20% Medicaid. Crazy. You could see that if you go back all the way to 2013, it was not like a lot higher, but it was significantly higher. It was before Medicaid expansion, and that's lowered the number down. We are seeing it slightly going up overall in the industry, back up a little bit in 17. I think some thought is that the out-of-pocket costs for people that do have insurance, there's still a lot that they have to pay themselves. And then full-time equivalents, just how many people does it take to operate your organization? It's the largest cost, obviously. So around 459 FTEs, fairly kind of similar to growth in the organization. Salaries and benefits per FTE. What does each person cost with benefits? Fairly similar through the years. We've done a little bit. You have added more providers, so that would push it up a little bit as well. And then net patient service revenue, just a really broad measure of productivity. Good consistent numbers along there. With that, you might be looking for trends if it's going. We've added a lot of people on those certain revenue. And then the last report is a couple-page letter, which just points out if there were accounting changes. There aren't any. Yes. And then accounting estimates, allowance for uncollectible accounts is an estimate. It's not going to turn out exactly like it's estimated. And then those Medicare, Medicaid, rural health clinic, reconciliation settlements, all estimates that will have, as they go through the audit processes with Medicare and the states, will vary a little bit from the current estimates. And then you also have the self-insurance, or had the self-insurance in a different way, but would be incurred but not recorded as an estimate as well. No difficulties in performing the audit. sometimes we do say that too. Sometimes there are difficulties. And no material audit adjustments that weren't provided by you guys as part of the audit process. Which is good to know as well. Any questions?
Questions about the audit? Any specific questions or general questions?
I would just like to thank Kelly. She's run to midnight oil getting it done. I think she was like 0.1% off the preliminary income final edit. So she's a very precise count.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, yes, but yeah.
Any questions? All right, thank you very much.
You got the applause, so good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay, next we go to reports and dashboards. First, quality, Mandy Olson. One thing that we're going to deal with too, is in the packet, is the patient and family implementation plan. I think you guys had a chance to review that. We did it.
Oh, we did it? So there you go. I don't really have anything to add to my report about the dashboard, just that, as I mentioned, I'm really excited about the data we'll have in the future, but there's gonna be some growing pains to get there. It'll just take a little while for it to be able to show up in aggregate on this dashboard.
Yeah, anything you want to highlight? I know that you have your report here. Had a chance to review that. Is there anything that anybody has questioned from any? Go ahead, Eric.
Oh, the two stroke cases that missed the TPA.
Yes. So one of them was 64 minutes. They've already done some improvement work around, so just outside the window. The other one, there was only, I don't know the one in February. I don't have that off the top of my head, but the one for March was 4 minutes outside. They have their booth that they did at the recent Ed Fair related to this. I did just find out today one of the challenges had to do with we're going to get engineering involved because the pharmacist was in the IV hood, the room where they're doing the IV mixing, and there's no speaker in there. And so they couldn't hear the page, and so working with engineering and communications on how they can get that so they can get people there. So there a lot of improvement work happening around that still. And then they have the stroke panel that's coming up as well that they're working on.
And the clock starts does that start as soon as EMS arrives on scene?
Yes.
Or as soon as the patient
on arrival.
presents?
At the hospital? It's arrival.
So it's arrival at the hospital, not...
No, I'm not at the scene where they are. And you can see like on the stroke IV TPA timing, arrived by 2 hour, treat by 3. So there's no patient in that the next box down because they fell out of that window of. So these two measures, if they don't meet the first one, can they meet the second one? But they weren't able to. They weren't included in that population because they're in the other one. So.
What is DYSPUA?
Dysphagia?
Yeah, up in the top section.
That's difficulty in speaking. No, that's speaking or swallowing.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking at the second bullet.
Sorry, I was looking for a chart.
Oh, this here?
Wait, which one you cut?
Yeah.
Oh, the home health measures?
That's shortness.
Yes.
There are other questions about her report or the dashboard before we talk about patient family?
I would just like to say I'm happy that something was identified that we can improve upon with
Oh, yeah, and-
Identified right then.
They, so the unfortunate thing is they've been working on that for a while, actually, and they've been chipping away at some of the pieces. But this is exactly why we continue to measure things, is that, oh yeah, it looked better, but we didn't get to all the root causes of the problem. So we keep working it.
All right, other questions? All right, let's move on then to the patient-family engagements implementation plan. This is something we did review and talk about at QI Council.
And with Erica as well, because it aligns with the strategic business plan around building trust and transparency with the community.
Good.
So Erica reviewed it as well.
And Roy, weren't you at that QI Council meeting?
Yes. Hang on, was out of town.
Right. So are there any questions about this? As I understand it, just a broad picture, I think the idea is to get some involvement on existing committees and things before we actually have its own council. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So the recommendation is that we'll try a few individuals either on committees, which we do now have Judy Love on our QI Council committee. So we're meeting one of the metrics we weren't previously. And we use her also to help us expand into either other process improvement areas or committees with more patient-family advisors, and then see how that's going. So do some kind of checking in on that process in the fall and see if we want to have a full-blown committee or something like that to meet our needs.
So this is described on the third page of the plan, 12E. So they talk about recruiting and hire, and E, recruit and hire first, 1 to 2 PFAs, projects and committees, and then evaluates how it's going, and then if it's going well and we think that there's room for growth, then to move on to a standalone patient-family advisory.
And at that point, if the team thought, yes, we should pursue the standalone, we take that back to QI Council and to the board to say, yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, there would be a sort of working out of what that would look like, and then they'd bring it to us for approval. Right now, it's just, are we supportive of the idea of increasing participation, PFAs on these committees, so that we can eventually, maybe, if it works out, expand. But this is really just kind of a dipping toe in the water.
But the PFA is described under 5A as far as the steering group is concerned.
Yeah, that would be the group to help start recruiting and developing the program that these individuals would work under. We don't want to just say, oh yeah, we'll bring people in, but there's no structure for how they're going to work within the organization. So that would be a group to help get that started.
I'm confused, are we talking PFA or PFE?
So patient-family engagement is is a whole group of activities. Patient-family advisory committee is one activity that you embark on as part of patient and family engagement. So although this patient-family advisors or the committee that we're looking for approval on building that, there are actually 5 metrics involved. And so part of the reason we look to the board for approval on this is they do talk about does the board have a patient representative on their body? And obviously that's something that's not possible, but there's lots of alternatives to it, and we would want you to make that decision.
Yeah, I remember. So yeah, because we're an elected board, then you can't necessarily, you're not necessarily going to have someone representing the patient perspective.
Alone, only the patient perspective.
And so the idea, one option, as I understand it, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, is that one of us could potentially be designated as the patient's representative, and then we would sort of take on that role. There are different options, but that seemed to be the one that was probably more appropriate for elected board members.
And for those particular things where it need a board decision, we're not asking yet for that. We think that needs more discussion with, and time for you to kind of work through all the options. But that's kind of, you know, do you want us to pursue patient family engagement at all?
Yeah.
Too, and look into these metrics? So.
Yeah, I think we're supportive of this. I mean, I know that I am, and Erica, Roy, we've been Liana, I don't know how much chance you've had to look this over, but are there any questions that anyone has about the plan here?
Are we taking action on the implementation plan that's described in those 3 pages roughly?
Yep.
So, okay.
I believe
So
so.
we need a motion for adopting that implementation plan in its draft form, and then we have some mileposts that there'll be some feedback to us about how things are progressing.
Yep, they'd report back to us on progress.
Yeah. Well, I'll move that we adopt the implementation plan.
Okay.
As described in the draft on those 2 pages.
Okay, thank you, Roy. All right, a second from Erica. Is there further discussion about this plan, whether it's just clarification or the issues that you have? Any discussion, questions? Yes.
I have long wanted to see something like this come to fruition, and thought it was something that was definitely missing. And it's not sure that I knew that it needed to be in this format, but upon seeing it, I think it's a great deal. So this will serve our community well. Looking forward to seeing it in full.
But much of this initial work is going to be done by that steering group, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And as you can see, there is, I mean, it's up to us, I suppose, but there is a room possibly for board members to serve on that steering group. Other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of moving forward and approving the patient and family implementation plan, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you. Good job, Mandy, putting this together. Thank you.
Oh, and Michelle had a huge part in this. So,
Thank you to
At
Mandy
our
and Michelle.
Wish boot camp, we learned a lot and we worked on this. So
Yeah.
it was really big.
I'm always amazed by all this. I mean, we get the end products.
The shiny.
Right, the shiny copy that we can, I'm sure a lot of work went into this, and I appreciate the work you guys both put into this. Thank you.
It was a very worthwhile trip to Wisha.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Anything else, Mandy?
So,
Okay, thanks a lot. Then we'll move on to the CEO report from Julie Peterson.
So I have very little to add to the written report that's provided in your packet. You know, one of the focuses we did have was on making sure that we kept our employee evaluations timely and meaningful. At the end of 2017, we ended very well, but with the sooner implementation, we did find ourselves slipping. So in the last couple of weeks, we put some extra effort into that. We currently, and I think this is as of today, we have 53 people who have delinquent evaluations. Some of those go back to 2017 field review. But people are working very quickly to get those processes so that our employees have a gauge of how we're doing and what our expectations are. So 53 at the end of May, and as I said, we expect a lot of those to go away. I will point out that I'm on here, so Matt, I'm supposed to send you an email or actually evaluation date, right? So, yeah. So the only other thing I wanted, the resolution to proceed to take MAP 1 to bid, which is an action item. And at your place, you should have had the bid from Randy Kaiser and Ron Erlecker are working on this together. So again, the construction bid itself is $535,000. The new law does not require that we put a not to exceed in, so this is what we go in with the expectation, but we won't be backed into a corner I will point out that consistent with the radio bill that we looked at a couple months ago, 51% of the costs are in the two line items of mechanical and electrical. So it's very much consistent. This calculates out, the suite we're looking at is 2,160 square feet. It's $248 per square foot. And just if you're interested, that extrapolates to $4.5 million for the big suite build-out that one of the associations vacates. So tonight we're asking for the authority to go to bid with the anticipated construction cost of $535,000. The bid opening, we will have a mandatory walkthrough on June 5th. The bid opening will be June 15th.
Could you repeat the point you made about it extrapolates out to $4.something million? Explain that a little more.
At $248 per square foot on this suite, in this site, in this building, if we have 18,092 square feet to build out when DSHS vacates and we remodel the third floor, and then the two suites that they're in, that's $4.5 million. I would hope that we would get some economies, and obviously this component something this large. 248 seems to be.
So we have a couple of different, I mean, we have the resolution, we also have the CEO report. Are there any questions about, let's talk about the report just for a second. Are there any questions or issues regarding the report that you have a question for before we move to the resolution? Any questions? You've had the employee forums, you said, sort of mentioned site planning there. Is that the kind of issue on the front of their minds right now?
I think so, and I was having some really candid conversations with people about what had happened with the bid and how that has inspired some different thinking about how to get aware. And then folks that I heard that one department still felt like they didn't know enough, so I had a chance to stand at the nurses' stations today and talking kind of about what the planning was and what that. So I thought they were well attended. They were good events, and we will be moving some time spots around for both Leon and the clinics here. So we'll move them in the evenings this coming summer.
Regarding Swedish, have they identified which specialties?
Have they, what?
Oh, sorry. Maybe I have to finish that thought. It was a little telepathic moment there. I was wondering if Swedish had identified which specialties would be going in Upper County.
And the answer is no. So there's a competing list of what we want, what we don't want, what they are able to offer.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a whole lot of meeting in the middle at this point.
Okay. Any questions? Any other questions about the CEO report before we move on to the resolution? Okay, thank you. So we have the resolution 18-04 to authorize this public works project. Any questions about this?
What are GWB systems? Anybody know this one? This lady that we're on topic.
WB.
About 12 or 14 items now, isn't it?
It's the 39,119 amount.
I don't know even for gas, water. I can make something up. I would be guessing. So I'm sorry, I don't know.
This is being recorded.
Yes.
Just seems like in presidential hearings.
Well, and I've tried in the past to match sort of estimates between different architectural things. They all group things.
Classify differently.
Any other questions about the estimates? Okay, hearing none. This resolution number 18-04 authorizes public works project. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
All right. Thank you, Roy. Seconded by Karen. Any additional discussion or questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor of resolution number 18-04, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None? There we go. Unanimous. Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And Dr. O'Brien, you came here just in time.
Perfect timing, not to accommodate.
Thank you. All right, so Dr. O'Brien, it's all yours.
Okay, the reappointments, these are all applications for reappointments. This month, just 5 of them. I think you have the list, and maybe even know who they all are. Michael and Powers, active status from Central Washington, Community Health, Central Washington. Lise Herman, pediatrician, active. John Merrill Stesko, ambulatory status of family medicine, KDH. Brian McElhaney is a direct radiology provider, and Jose Diaz is a PA, Ellensburg Family Medicine, KDH. And these are all reappointments, and they all have perfectly clear records since the last appointments. So we are following some of the suggestions of the board in terms of initiating pre-review of these.
I noticed that there were multiple signatures too from on the medical executive.
Well, in this case, this was the first kind of cycle of these until the next time they will be pre-reviewed ahead of time rather than at the meeting itself. Yes, they were this time.
Okay.
And those were just the ones, the 3 of us were at that meeting. Now, we are also planning to, well, I'll just address later, but we recommend that you approve these applications for reappointments and privileges as requested.
And I just, I've asked questions like this before, and I think I know the answer. But when the state license expires, it's just then they're not allowed to practice. So
yes,
but it's usually just read.
If the state license expires, it's an automatic instantaneous stop.
Yep. All right. Well, are there any questions? Okay. A motion from Erica to approve. Second from Liana. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving these practitioners for all of them, I guess, reappointments, please say aye. Aye. Okay, unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah.
And did you say you had something else?
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say is we are going to move our MEC meetings to 5:15 to 6:45. The people that were there were all in favor of it. It turns out that John Merrill Stesko can't make that. So he's tendered his resignation from MEC, so we'll have to get a new member, hopefully, of family practice. We'd like to have all areas represented.
We appreciate your efforts to do these things. So thank you very much.
Claire, you got good suggestions.
Julie, I want to ask your advice about whether you were having some discussion about the issue of newborn call schedule and OEPs and their issues. That may be better to wait on that, but it was kind of a substantial discussion.
Yeah, that's still in process of evolution. Of course, at the MEC, at which you were present, Bob was too, there was an extensive discussion, 45 minutes on this very subject, and that's what I'm sure there was debate, on both sides of how to manage this situation. And I've been working with the OB nurses in terms of what the real workflow is and what the actual best solution to this issue is. And, well, as I said, there's a discussion on both sides. The concerns, some of the concerns that were raised against the idea of, essentially, as Julie said, having everybody on call all the time, which is kind of what we're advocating. Some of the objections to that approach voiced by other doctors in the room who don't work every day. We're kind of doubtful of that. But, working with the nurses, we're developing, it's been revised. I think you probably saw the kind of plan that the nurses have drawn up. I think you got a copy of that at the MAC. Not
Yeah,
yet.
we got it at the
In the MAC. Yeah, the two board members present. Anyway, long story short, that's being revised and perfected and changed. Anyway, we're going to bring it back again.
There was, though, a question that might end up requiring board policy, and that has to do with whether doctors could cherry pick the newborns that they want to take care of. Whether it is appropriate for some doctors to say, I would only treat well newborns, I will not treat distressed newborns. And that's a policy question. Will it ultimately be appropriate for the board to take a stand on that issue?
So, from my perspective, as the work goes forward at NEC, the bylaws call for engagement from the OB providers in what's called unassigned OB. So if somebody comes to the emergency department and they're out of town, they don't know anybody here, if someone is supposed to call all the time to respond to that. We don't have complete participation in that. That's counter to the bylaws. Newborns, similarly, it's sort of I think the idea that Leon was referring to and what needs to be wrestled with, it's if you're a family practice doc and you want to take care of patients in your practice, you want a newborn coming with fluid soul for their checkup, is it appropriate for you to say, hey, I don't do call, I just want you deal with them and then I'll take them in my practice. So it's something that is sort of a problem that we created because the alternate was willing to take 20 days a month of call. This is an obligation of the medical staff that comes through the medical staff bylaws. We've had some great participation. People stepping up who haven't had to do this in some time. We've had some people that are more reluctant to do that. This is the medical staff dealing as a body with other medical staff.
So is this, if I understand this correctly, is this then just a matter not of changing policy, but just of enforcing existing?
So again, we need to separate sort of the administrative responsibilities because the medical staff is charged with enforcing the bylaws of the medical staff.
Right.
From an administrative perspective, we employ the lion's share of folks who are taking care of children in practices here. It will be up to us to say, if you want a family medicine practice, including infant, you're going to have to help support our OB program. That's an employer administrative sort of decision that we will make. Again, at this point, we have some very willing and cooperative providers in-house.
So this is not, this is not for us yet.
Not yet.
Correct, no, yeah, that's right. It's still being worked on.
Yeah. Okay. So is that okay, Leon?
Sure, yes, absolutely. I just wanted to raise awareness of it.
Just for your information, the solution that we're working on, trying to get hopefully approved as a policy by the NEC, came from the OB-PEDS department meeting committee, who basically came to this solution. But it hasn't been worked out yet.
And just to be fair, you and I have acknowledged the friction between putting the burden on the nurses in order to keep it, and so we're sort of duking it out over where the appropriate place for this responsibility
you know, and the nurses now are telling me that this hopefully implemented solution planning is actually not going to put any work on them because we've developed a chain of responsibility. The nurse calls one person. If they can't come in, they are responsible to have someone back in them, et cetera, et cetera. That's what I'm saying. Everybody can kind of sort of everybody on call all the time. But this is something that's only really used most a few times a year. You know, so it's.
Okay.
It didn't seem logical to have a complete call list, you know, for something that is almost never used.
Okay. Well, it sounds like you're working on it.
Yes, we're over and over again.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you. Any other questions or anything for Dr.? Thank you very much. All right. And remember, Kevin Martin's not here, so we're going to put off discussion of medical staff development plan. So we'll move right on to Libby Allgood, CFO.
Okay. When you have the written report, where we identified some of the major issues in the month of April. But I will point out, I also left everybody since the updated cash plan. And this is truly updated. I did go back to the source data and I actually updated the months of January and February to be more accurate as well, compared to what we've previously done. I think our biggest issue right now is just working through encounters that are still stuck in a coding queue for a variety of reasons. Once they're out of the coding queue, then they go into the billing department, and we are also working through issues in the billing department. I was excited. I think last month I reported that we were getting closer and closer to majority of our claims being clean, which means we don't have to touch them all. But that I think we kind of reverted a little bit. We still have a lot of claims that we're having to touch and work on. And so that's really my biggest concern right now is to get all of the issues on the revenue cycle with the implementation addressed. And we instituted a daily meeting to go over the charges that were recognized the previous day. So we can identify some of those issues more contemporary when they're occurring so we can work through those. I updated the plan here, the cash recovery plan, in talking with my team. The first item actually was capturing the patient legacy data in Cerner. That's essentially done. We've got the data in there for patients scheduled months ahead of now. It's just those ones that are more of the drop-in that you have to put the data in for. But the last three items, the charging for services, I had hoped to have that fixed really by mid-May. I think May 31st still could be a little aggressive, but I'm trying to be aggressive on this. The coding encounters and the claims processing, I talked with both the billing staff and our HIM staff, and we think we can be at 80% by June 15th. So it's, we're working on it. I know that I heard that Julie reported to the finance committee that some organizations at AR days go into the 3 digits. I would like it if ours wouldn't. I can't say that they will. Anyway, I just wanted, that's really what our focus is right now, is to try to get on top of the charging issues. And as you heard from Bill from Rehab, what he was mentioning about things not coming through, we're seeing that in some departments. So it's some of the cleanup to do after the implementation.
What about, we're still having that issue with radiology?
Actually, we touched base on that today. I think on the imaging side, it's going well. We're wrapping up the end of the project, getting them the demographic information and the clinical information so that they can bill it. So it looks like we're on track.
Questions about the numbers? Anything else from the report?
I do have one other comment about that, and that is, I think we discussed it previously, about the same time that we were doing the refinancing of the building, we talked about the potential of refinancing the LTGO debt that's out there, about have debt from both districts on the line, so I couldn't remember which one it was. We are going to talk with BBVA. They are the ones that have an offer out just for this refinancing, and it's at, right now it's at 3.18%, which is pretty good. But we do need to share with them this issue about the disclosure. We'll have to that could potentially postpone retirement benefits to the town. I talked with Tom at length before the meeting, and he thinks that should be a non-issue. I still need to talk to him about it, but he thinks that most debt covenants require something like that out because it is such a...
Well, it's not unique to us.
No, it isn't unique to us, and it's, I mean, one could argue that it's not really a liability. I mean, if we leave, it's not a liability. So anyway, so I will be talking with them about that. I think we have an opportunity to lock that rate in, which I think might come about. I've talked to him, I'll probably do it tomorrow. And then we would be bringing a resolution to probably in the June meeting, if you want to take that.
What, sorry, can I mention it's the current rate on that?
I don't remember. It's part of it's 3.84. District 2 is 4.
Oh, okay, all right.
But it's not so much. I mean, there could obviously be a little bit of savings because of that rate differential. But the biggest thing for us is that the covenants on that existing debt are not great. And so if we refinance it, we would improve those covenants, which would allow us a different debt service coverage ratio. We would also have a more generous debt to equity ratio, things like that, which would be beneficial to us, particularly given you're hearing about the changes in how we have to account for leases and things like that, which will impact some of those ratios. Yeah. So anyway, I'll have more information on that. We'll bring a resolution to the June meeting. Okay.
Any additional questions for the CFO? Okay, thank you. All right, Naomi, you want to talk about the Finance Committee?
We discussed pretty much, we had the same presentation from Tom, our accountant. And talked about those issues, like the issue with the PEB and a few other things more extensively than we did here. And then we went over the numbers and the April operating results, and a few things were clarified. But I mean, I for one wanted to thank Libby for making the decision to hire a vendor to handle the legacy debt. So in AYA, so that there's one team that's working on the debt and one team that's working on the next gen back debt, and I think that's helping the revenue process considerably. And then we had a capital expenditure request to purchase an ultrasound guidance system for the placement of lines and midline catheters. Our current equipment is outdated and it's not thoroughly dependable, and this system will make a considerable difference in assuring that PICC lines and these catheters can be properly placed. It's high technology, but it's pretty necessary. And Amy Krogstad from Surgical Services came to the meeting and presented some additional data, and so maybe voted unanimously to recommend to the board to purchase it.
other item, we didn't take it out, there's the imaging, digital imaging, it's being deferred to July.
Right, and we may come back to the same configuration as this.
Okay, so do I hear, or I guess I can move the approval of the purchase of the ultrasound guidance system.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion about the ultrasound guidance system? Hearing none, all those in favor of this capital expenditure, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Oh, I will say one other thing. Because the next scheduled meeting would have been the Tuesday that we're at Chelan.
Respiratory, dial 353. Respiratory, 353.
Julie and Libby and Roy and I will all be at Chelan, so we'll have a small meeting without the full panel of participants.
Okay.
The finance committee.
Okay. Next, operations report, Vicki.
Hi. My report's pretty small, but since then I've got 2 other items I can talk about.
Okay.
We've been really busy. I must say, I don't know, I saw some of you maybe at the education fair. It went really well, and there were huge participants, huge amount of participants that were able to go through. So that was a great endeavor. Since then, we have had a data request from WSNA, which is our nurses union, for information around meal and rest breaks. Currently, they're asking for policies, procedures, pay practices, coverage during those times. Basically, they're just seeking information about our current practices and how we handle those. So we've been gathering those together. I think Terry will get them off on Monday. But this has been a push at the state level with WSNA about allowing nurses their breaks, you know, and they work 8-hour, 10-hour, and 12-hour shifts. So how do institutions manage that and cover their patients during that time? This is also, SCIU is another union for nurses around the state, and they are also inquiring the same information. So I'm sure we'll hear some more about that from at the legislative level. The other thing I want to announce is that our family birthing place had applied for, I don't know if it's a grant or scholarship funds available to hospitals that participate in the Breastfeeding Friendly initiative, and they were appointed or approved to do that by the CDC at the national level, and we are one of 90 hospitals that they're selected to participate. So we're able to send 3 staff members from that department for a 2-day training course on, and it's through the Division of, let me get this right, this is CDC, Nutrition and Obesity, I believe, for children. So they go to a 2-day class, will come in, it's more of the train the trainer on how to educate your staff and or lactation consultants on the benefits of breastfeeding. So we're really excited about that. They start, the general conversations start in June, and I'm not exactly sure the dates of the training. So more to come on that. Yeah. Questions?
Yeah, any questions or follow-up?
I have a follow-up that's sort of tangentially related, and that is that last Friday, Roy, Erica, and I participated in a Gemba that Vicki Majuro attended and kind of organized. And Stacy from Morgan Griffin was present, and there was someone else.
Morgan Materials.
Yes, the supply person. And so we learned how supplies are dispensed and how they're kept track of and how inventories are charted. And then we went from there to the family birthing place to see how it works in the room. And it was really valuable. It was one of the most valuable Gembas I've ever been on. We learned a lot. It was useful to understand Cerner in practice, to see it on this screen. And so I want to thank those of you who put that together, because it was very valuable.
I know that there were some concerns raised about that. Do you feel like those concerns were related?
I have a couple thoughts. I was heartened by the ingenuity of staff who've come up with ways to work, to make it easier, to make life easier in consideration, and hopefully that some of those strategies can be deployed more broadly in the organization. I know that family workplace it was described how it's a special circumstance and how the patient care flow and scanning goes. But it does seem that we are not short on intelligent people here who have come up with really great ideas. So hopefully there's a reason to be reason to be hopeful with further ingenuity here. And then I had asked whether we cannot be the only organization experiencing these growing pains, and whether we've been able to reach out to other organizations that have the Community Works. I remember it, Community Works, with Cerner, and I guess Cerner holds a tight rein.
Although we have been able to find some people to talk to, probably Central Canada.
Oh, okay, very good.
A couple facilities that are using it, but might not be using it exactly as we are. So
maybe have some pearls to share with us.
Yes.
Because I'm a huge fan of not reinventing the wheel. We have to. So, anyhow, I thought it was very useful, and every time I go on again, I love that I learn about what the focus was, but then I learn other things as well, and it's always a valuable experience. Do you have thoughts on that?
No, just want to thank Vicki and Morgan and Stacy for putting together a really good tour for us. Thought it was useful. Whether it has allayed any of the concerns, I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out with future coffee with the commissioners. But,
from my point of view, and I agree with what Erica said, that in family birthing place, they have come up with some practices that enable them to do what they need to do, but to do it in a way that's not onerous. And I think that was quite impressive.
Yeah, I also got the sense from, I'm not sure if it was from Morgan, Stacy, or someone else, that Cerner is perhaps eager to reply with a no right off the bat, and then take some thought and to come up with solutions. Yeah. So perhaps there's reason, again, to be hopeful in that direction, that they might suddenly come up with, oh yes, by the way, you can do this, or, but I would like to definitely keep abreast of how the situation is going on for the staff. One of the things that I noticed, and this was not related necessarily to scanning, because this happens no matter any time somebody accesses a patient record, was the lag time on the login, and then there's that loading. That would drive me up the wall. Is that? Do people share my sentiment of that, or is that always the case that if there's that lag every time you log in to a patient?
We have heard about that. That's pretty consistent. Yeah.
Is that going to change in a positive direction? Do we know, or is that just kind of how it is? Do we know why it happens?
I don't know.
I don't think.
I think the answer, one of the things we have done is engaged in the reason you're getting this there is that there's different situations depending on where you are.
So it's not
right. What application you're on. What we have done is engage a consultant to come in and do sort of an assessment of the foundational IT structure. So do we have the right bandwidth? Do we have the right routers dispersing utilization?
Maybe there's kinks in the lines.
So we engaged in outside group.
Oh, good. So I'm curious to know how
you're right. I mean, 3-5 seconds seems like a really long time.
That's Twitter picture right there.
Well, yeah, and is it because older units that it's loading on, there are all kinds of possible reasons?
Or is it just the antenna?
Right.
Yeah. So that's that. We need to look at it.
Hopefully they have some promising news for us.
Right.
Any additional questions or anything?
One last thought. I actually think it would be valuable for the other two board members to take you to say it again, but because you sit in on the coffee with the commissioners and you and I've heard from both of you that those issues are repeatedly brought up. So it might help your ability to respond to.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll talk to Bob and get in touch with him.
This sounds very interesting.
I'd almost want to do it. You got to go into the inner sanctum.
Yeah.
This time you could say like.
Yeah, I was, I've been in there.
Well, I've got a visual demonstration of the two-pin system, which I wasn't quite sure what that was all about.
The drawer system, though, is ingenious. The just swap out the, yeah.
Thank you. All right, next, Roger, Chief Counsel.
Yeah. I have a couple of updates for you. First, I wanted to let you know that we're having a little bit of delay, probably a 2-week delay on reading or screening mammograms. We can still perform them, but the instrument that we use or the equipment that we use to transfer film of the old images, prior exams, into digital in packs isn't working. And so it's probably going to take 2 weeks for that to get fixed. So we've let our providers know, our clinic leads know that there is a delay in the reading of them. We can still perform those exams. There just will be a delay in a woman getting her results on her annual screening mammogram.
If it's her initial mammogram, then
There wouldn't be a problem because there wouldn't be any prior exams.
Is this like an actual scanning device that?
Not quite like that. It's a pretty big machine.
But it's reading actual films?
Yes.
So if there's a digital history, then that's not an issue there.
If the digital history is already in our PAC system, like if it was a diagnostic mammogram, it would probably be in there, so those wouldn't be impacted. It would just be repeat screening exams. So you may hear about that. And we'll get it fixed as soon as possible. We got our quotes in today for repairs. That's great. The Department of Health inspection for the lab up at Urgent Care did occur on May 16th, and there were no citations, so that was great to have a good report with that. And the rest of our imaging equipment updates are going along just fine for both our radiology room 1. It'll probably be up and running that first week of June. And then the mobile MRI will probably be operational also in the first week of June, but that will take a lot of training of staff on that equipment, so we won't actually be seeing patients out there for a while, and the mobile will still be here while we train staff on using the new equipment. Let's see, cardiopulmonary, we're set to go to our Teamsters negotiations on May 30th, so we're really hopeful that we'll have a good outcome with that.
Could you remind me how many people we're talking about?
3.
That's, okay.
And then I wanted to update you about the pharmacy in Cleellum. They are opening, a private independent pharmacy is opening May 30th, and they have invited us to their open house, which that will be next Wednesday, May 30th at 1 o'clock if anyone wanted to attend. I think we have several staff members that will go, but Julie and I will be in negotiations, so we won't be able to attend that. We will try to make a presence there, though, in the future, and I just thought it was really nice that they were reaching out to us to let us know they were opening and invite us.
Which one is this again?
It's an independent pharmacy, Cleellum Pharmacy.
Okay.
So that will give them Safeway up there and another option for them. So since the other 2 pharmacies have gone out of business. And I think that's all my updates.
I have a question about the MRI. And I think that I heard what the benefit is of the new one. They're measured in Teslas, the magnetic field in Teslas. Is this a more powerful MRI?
It does a lot more tests for us. So when we surveyed our providers, we found out there were tests that they were referring out because we couldn't do them here. In particular, wrists were going out. We can also do breast MRI now. There's some abdominal studies that we couldn't do with the prior machine. It also has a different fat gradient, so that if you have an obese person, it's more succinct on the images.
And from what I hear, it's a little less claustrophobic than what some of the other machines are. You can actually do some exams feet first. So there's some benefits to the patients that we didn't have previously. We did also discover that as far as the image quality goes, that a lot of times you think of radiation leaking out, and we put shielding there to protect people, but for the MRI, you want to protect it itself from radiation. It's just naturally occurring in the environment. And some of our shielding was sort of eroding over time in that modular building. So when they tore it apart, they were able to see that, and that could have been impacting some of our image quality. So that's been upgraded and shouldn't be impacting our images at all. So it's good that we did this.
Yeah, I really like hearing that we have identified one of the reasons that we're losing patients for even just for image and taking measures to sort of.
I have a couple of little cheeky little questions.
Sure.
One, what is a CLIA inspection?
There's different types of labs that you can do that don't require you to be fully certified by the Department of Health, and so it's sort of a smaller set of labs called CLIA, and that is what we have at the urgent care. So it's not a fully operational lab, it's just those few sets of labs that are done there.
Second question, our PTO candidate under Home Health and Hospice accepted. What is it physical therapy? Assistant, thank you. Okay, so it wasn't the old PTA that you had at school.
No.
The last question was about the letter that was sent to Governor Inslee. One of the issues that we've been hearing about is anxiety about weapons being brought into the emergency department, and that we had understood that it wasn't legal for us to forbid those, and there was a move, I believe, I don't know whether it was at the gubernatorial level or the legislative level to get that changed, and WISHA was working on that. Do we have any?
Yeah, that legislation did not break WISHA, so they didn't go anywhere.
Is that because the political opposition are by the gun people?
Yeah, it didn't get votes that it needed. I don't think it needed that committee, but there is a hospital association initiative called Hospitals Against Violence now, I think it is, and that's June 8th. They have some stuff that have you guys looked at that?
Yeah, I saw the material that they're putting out the initiative, but I haven't really seen a lot of what's behind the initiative, I guess.
Well, just to compliment, you've really been working on so many initiatives, and it's really impressive.
Thank you. One of these days, maybe my report will be a little smaller, I hope.
Well, I would also, another thing that has served us since Bill Waldner's passing is the way we were performing echoes or reading echoes for our patients. So it's really given us an opportunity to look at making sure, particularly in diagnostic imaging, working with that staff, not kind of imposing a new requirement on them, but ultrasound and echo really needs to be more available to the emergency departments with providers. So I think we had a really good meeting about how we were going to do that now that Bill's not available to do so much of it. But it also, I think it was 7:30 on a Monday morning or some terrible time like that. But we ended up, it's a really exciting discussion about how we manage post-discharge, the treatment and follow-up for patients when they're discharged from our inpatient or observation unit. So a lot of good work going on.
I should also mention, and I forgot to put it in my report, but we will be having ultrasound on call 24/7 beginning this weekend. So beginning tomorrow, they're going to be on call. So it's not for all procedures. We worked really hard with the ED providers and the hospitalists and the ultrasound staff and radiologists to determine what was really an emergency that they needed to be called in for. So there's a certain set of exams that if the patient comes into the ED or a patient in-house experienced, we would call them in for an exam. So it's not everything. Those other exams, they would probably hold them in the ED and have them have a first appointment for the day, call them and say, you've got a patient, come in early, so that we can get the patient seen.
Is OB included in that or were they already?
It depends on what's going on with OB, not just a routine OB ultrasound,
Right.
but if you had a twisted ovary or, something really profound, that's a medical emergency and they need to come in for that. So we have identified those procedures. We don't want to wear them out. There are very few people that can do ultrasound. And they're hard to recruit. So we don't want to wear them out. We just want to be able to take care of the community adequately and meet the needs of our patients and providers.
Well, thanks to our ultrasound techs.
Yes, thank them very much.
Any last questions? Okay, thank you very much. So are we carried this?
We are carried, carried-free zone.
So,
But I
That's
have
right.
a question that I'd like to ask about her report, and because we have several RNs in the room, I can ask this. The item about Buzzy Bee.
I was going to ask about Buzzy Bee.
If I were a child and a Buzzy Bee were sitting on my injection site, I would call me. It would terrify me.
I can actually address this as a non-RN. So that was actually a product that came from the Ouchless ER, and think of it more of a cartoonish type bee that vibrates. It's something that's actually part of the tours that we do, and the kids really do like it. So I understand the concept of, really, you got a bee buzzing? But they think it's cute, it feels funny, and so it's a
Cartoonish
positive.
helps.
Yeah, cartoonish, yeah.
And I just wanted to I just want to point out my excitement of seeing that it's available for adults because I am a hard snack. And so I'm looking forward. All of this, that's great. Yeah.
Well, you two ought to maybe do the,
I'd love to see that.
Just come on our next one.
we saw some, we may have seen that when we did the Arsenal scene,
Yeah, Buzzy Bee was out there. I think Cody was showing off Buzzy Bee and the Star Trek Mainfinder.
I don't think it's scary.
Okay,
All right.
I'm reassured.
I would just like to mention there is a stroke panel that our providers can be participating in. It's May 30th at 5:30 on homes. So you get a chance to learn about PFAS. It's no longer FAP, it's PFAS.
Wait,
So,
BE or just B?
BE, which is balance and
Eyesight.
What's the eyesight component?
Vision, like if you have blurry,
Like,
yeah, or especially like if one field doesn't,
Okay.
can't see anything. It's fairly new. I think we learned about it in November from Virginia Mason.
so the balance part would be like really staggering sort of
Yeah.
falling down.
So it was really interesting when Virginia Mason came in and the doctor was talking about it because they can show the specific parts of the brain where each acronym is looking at. And so the balance and the eyesight are particular pieces, occipital and then the, do you remember running? No, it's temporal or parietal, I think. Anyway, they had a really cool visual about how the different letters identify the different parts in the brain where you could be, and we are potentially missing stroke by not looking at that balance and eyesight.
So you can ascertain a lot of information just from our
Wait till you learn your neuro.
started the assessment questions.
Yeah.
Okay, any further questions about the clinic operations? All right, education and board reports. Roy and I both went to the recent WISHA CEO and trustee
Were you on the same day or
summit.
something?
We're separate, we can't go on the same day or we come to close. Yeah, so two main topics.
he brought his gavel with him, so I don't.
Yeah, that's right. I'm ready to hit somebody with it. Anyway, two main topics, and I think that I forwarded you guys my notes and the PowerPoints. One was on provider burnout and how to address that. The other one was on healthcare disparities and achieving equity in healthcare. It was interesting to get these kind of big picture things. I think I found the stuff on healthcare disparities especially interesting to get a sense of that. I'm not sure that we have a lot of kind of specific suggestions coming back, but it was informative. So
So, question about that. as far as our strategic plan goes, how do these, I'm sure there's a way to.
The healthcare disparities ties in directly with Equity WSHA 123 pledge.
Right.
So that's something that Carrie Youngblood and I have both attended separate workshops, and we're kind of following what they put out. It's really there's a community engagement participation which fits in very nicely as part of that pledge, which is what we signed, which is something we can definitely do. The rest of it dives very deep into data collection methods and how you're looking at things. So it's a much bigger conversation, but it is something that we're following and we're participating in as best as we can.
How about the provider burnout? Is that public access, or how does that?
Well, they talked. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's about a commitment to our employees, which is
But
I can go in
ultimately,
position
patient safety
Yeah.
can be impacted if we have burnout as being a characteristic of the workforce.
one interesting thing that I found out, and I cited it, but that people are they're discovering that people are burned out in med school now. It's like they haven't even gotten out yet, but they're already burned out.
The cupcake generation.
So there's figuring out how to address some of that stuff early on. But
It is part of the conversation that Kevin Martin and Carrie, as we talked about designing the care reintegrating, and Bob Davis, by the way, has agreed optionally at least to participate in the care model design, sort of waking up that material together a few years ago. But it's very much part of the conversation. Built in your capacity.
good. Roy, anything to add to? Okay. Yeah, and if anybody's interested in the notes or things, I'd be happy to share. Just,
Thank you for those.
Yeah.
They were
Sure.
unbelievably
No problem.
thorough.
Thanks. All right, so we have this upcoming, our annual Rural Hospital Leadership Conference in Chelan. Everybody's going this year, right? Yeah, I think so. And we're going to get together with some or two. The hospital district 2 commissioners, which I think would be really good.
Yes, Monday evening after the wine tasting, so that's 6:30.
All right. And Roy, if you have any questions or anything about that, headed into it, just let us know.
Yeah.
All right, no old business. New. Oh, by the way, thanks, Frankie, for taking care of the planning for that. Appreciate it.
The Wednesday afternoon, I think we touched base with everyone that would be the time slot after the meeting. The meeting adjourns about 11:30 on Wednesday morning. We would have lunch and then really do a deep dive into the revenue staff.
Dr. Martin be here.
Yep, Dr. Martin and Mission.
Is there a sort of ballpark as to what is coming?
Frankie and I are talking 2 to 3. So have lunch, talk about it, and look at what the recruitment plans are.
Okay.
Can I just wave this around and remind everyone this is the June 30th graduation from the Central Washington Residency Program. 2 of these are ours. We have a number of people who will be going. Jay Casey and Annalise Stone. Annalise will start with family medicine in July. So our gift to them will be name tag.
Yeah.
At graduation, really good official engagement.
All right. That's great. Okay. No old business, new business, community relations report. Michelle.
I get to do the fun show and tell stuff. So in the report, I mentioned that we had the 3rd grade field trips. We brought every 3rd grader in Ellensburg through KDH, EPD, and KFR, and they all walked away with these shirts that I hear you continue to see around town.
My son was wearing this again today.
Yay! So it was a huge success. It brought some excitement to the facility. And so we were glad to have them. We got good feedback from everyone, from the teachers to the other entities. So it's something we want to continue and expand. I also wanted to show you, we're kind of excited about these. So these are backpack coolers. Okay. And so when you go to the farmers markets that we're going to be at, both in Ellensburg and in Roslyn, this will be it's a raffle prize for each event. So people can enter it. It'll be filled with some of our, we've got the cutting boards and shakers and things like that. So really trying to keep on our wellness, let's get out there, pack your lunch when you go hiking, that type of thing. So pretty excited about that. And then just the other thing.
Back up to the third graders and explain why it brought excitement.
I was passing that one. So we had the tours during Hospital Week. It was an exciting week during Ed Fair as well. It was Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And on Wednesday, we had a youngster pass out in the lab, and we got to see the rapid response system in place. And I'm happy to report all is fine. And on Friday, we had a youngster pass out in the emergency room. So
speaking of the cupcake,
yeah, it was handled very well by all staff, by teachers, by everyone. But it was an unanticipated. Are you kidding me?
This is a common phenomenon of graders in hospitals?
No, but apparently, as you know, after Wednesday, we were just kind of joking, having some conversation. One youngster walked in, and I don't know, somebody's like, "Oh, this could be scary." He's like, "Oh, this is fine. Nobody's going to get sick." He goes, "Oh, but I just passed out on the playground yesterday." So I don't know. Apparently, this is an issue. I helped Mandy in her falls data, though. So
Yeah.
so when you see a spike in falls,
Well,
for the month
because
of-
they're non-patients.
Okay, never mind. You don't see that. You don't look really excited. Passed over that. So that we did do a specific reach out to the teachers that were there, both after those events in particular, but following up, just how do you feel about this? Was this a good event? Was this age appropriate? Did the kids like it? Is this something that you want to continue? And the answer to all of those were yes. So that made me feel good.
So was this, you may have said this, was this the first time?
Yes. Yes. What's that?
Water safety.
Oh, yeah, so we're waiting for that, so we don't get anything to announce yet. So what we're trying to do is, if it becomes feasible, prior to me coming on, Amy had started conversations with the city of Ellensburg in the pool to try and put every kindergartner through first level 1 water safety class. Given both the canals going through our town and the river and the lakes and things like that, we just feel it's really important. So those conversations have started, and through the dialogues, there were a lot of logistical questions from the city on how do we handle this, and finally when we were looking at the numbers, I'm hoping that we don't have to go through this voucher system back and forth and how are they going to sign up. I'm hoping it's something that KVH can just support carte blanche, level 1 swim lessons, and so hopefully I'll have something to report next month. We're just waiting to hear back from the city. And the last thing that I just wanted to call your attention to, so in the board report we're always talking about this is going on and you see things in the newspaper and I'm sending you emails, but if you forget, we now have an events page live on our website that you can go and look up at the top on the utility menu. The website is still going through a revamp, so you won't be seeing any of that cool functionality right now, but we added it to our current website. So anything that KVH is going to be at, or if we are sponsoring it, or if we have educational classes, those are live on our website. It talks about our KVH in the Community Education Series, and so we have topics for some of the out months. We don't have dates necessarily lined out, so you'll see what's coming as well as what we know we are doing. So hopefully that helps.
I really enjoyed the format tonight.
Let's just.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful. It brings together so much information and in one source. It's really valuable. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It makes a CEO report look like garbage.
Julie, your report's beautiful.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so 7:10. We're going to have a very short executive session tonight, about 15 minutes, just to give us a little time, maybe, so we don't have to bolt down our food. Let's have a 15-minute break until 7:25, and then we'll have a 15-minute executive session, reconvene, and an open session at 7:40. Does that sound okay to everybody?